Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, agents. I am Mountie Carl, and this is the Let's Talk on the Division that you've been waiting for. Last night, the patch went out, and if you are stuck at work, stuck at home, somewhere else, or just don't have internet, but you have internet, of course, because you are listening to this, but even if that is true, and you haven't logged in yet, then you don't know about the G36. Well, last night we all became mere mortals once again, and the G36 was nerfed right out from under us. Now, it was nerfed by 15%, and that is a huge jump, but don't worry. I have your G36 alternatives that we'll get to as soon as this is done if you're really bummed about it. But my verdict is, yes, they nerfed the G36, but it wasn't a big enough nerf to make it a terrible gun. In fact, it's actually still one of the best guns for PvE. Now, the damage was reduced quite a bit, and with that said, with the focus perk, it actually fires at the unfocused damage rate of the pre-nerf, so it's not terrible, it's just not as godly as it was. Now let's quickly hit some guns that hit as hard as the G36 pre-nerf but won't compare to the DPS output. Our first gun is the classic FAL, or FAL is what we'll be calling it. As you can see, the damage is on par with some of the mid-range damage of the G36, but the RPM is 100 less at 650, producing less than desirable DPS, although it does pump out the same amount of damage almost, and you won't lose anything by using a skill. Now, heading back to the G36, you can see that the damage output of an unmodded G36 is actually less than the classic FAL, despite having that 14% boost. The downside to the FAL is that you won't be hitting enemies with a constant stream of fire, and your fingers will get tired of pulling that trigger. It might be time to invest in an elite controller to help with the button pressing. The next gun that competes with our damage output of the pre-nerf G36 is the tactical SA-58, which is also a burst fire weapon. Now, you're starting to see the trade-off: higher damage per bullet, slower rate of fire. However, these guns at my firearms of 2,000 firearms, so you should have a pretty good boost to DPS if you are going to use them at a higher number for the firearms DPS. Now, if you're looking to compromise and get a gun that you can do damage to enemies with and have the same stability, you can try rolling an LVOA-C, which has a very comparable stability to the G36, but you will be getting less damage. But overall, it's still a great gun and on par with the G36 in terms of usability. You do not need a G36 to go ahead and compete. You can use the LVOA. It has less damage, but if you're lucky and you get a great roll, you can get something that is equally good as the G36. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the state of the game and break that down. We all know about the G36 nerf, but let's talk a bit about that. It was nerfed because, as they said, the damage was so high there wasn't a reason to use any other gun in the game. That's true, which is also why they nerfed the AUG and the Vector. Sadly, no one wants to use those guns anymore because Massive nerfed them into an unusable state with their SMG crit hit damage change. Honestly, this was the wrong move. They keep upping the difficulty of enemies yet expect people to fight them with the same guns. This game is becoming like a constant war, with Massive supplying the enemies with new and better weapons and more armor, yet telling us that they're going to give us a slingshot to replace our pistol because we're using the pistol too much. It makes no sense to aid the enemy and yet tell us we can't get better weapons because it would be unfair to them. If you increase the enemy difficulty, aka level 35 and more armor, you can't take and give us the same guns that are effective on a level 30 and expect the community to be happy or excited. Right now, people are rightly upset because you were listening and then you stopped because your precious time to kill was more important. You need to raise the weapon damage of the 229 weapons. Why are you giving us the same weapons with a higher gear score at the same damage level as 204 with a slight increase to perks that take a lot more skill points to actually activate in the respective areas? I'm just gonna say, use a 204 weapon right now. Don't use a 229. The 204 weapons are better. You're gonna get better perks. They do the same amount of damage. I promise you, the damage is almost the same. You can find weapons that do the same amount of damage as 229 guns, but you're gonna be able to get those perks activated a lot easier because they're lower. You don't have to need 2800 for a 1% increase to brutal. It's not worth trying to get your firearms up that high. It's ridiculous. So just use a 204 weapon. The gear score is going to be inflated. I don't believe in gear score. I think gear score is a BS stat and nobody needs it. I actually wish they would just take it out of the game because it really makes people kind of desensitized to actually what their gear is, and it makes them stupid. Like, it really makes people stupid. I'm 255, I can tank anything. I can just run out here and get shot in the face with a shotgun and live. No, nobody's doing that. 255 is a myth, and if you don't have the right gear and you don't have the right gear rolls, you are basically walking into a trap. So moving on, they fixed a ton of bugs, and I haven't had a chance to look at them all yet to verify if they've been fixed or there was actual exploits fixed, but since they didn't have any in the notes of being fixed, I'm pretty sure you can all go back to using the mobile cover to pass through things and farming the 4 horsemen for weapons. But they did nerf the boss loot drop at the end of Dragon's Nest, so that's done. No more Dragon's Nest farming there on the end boss, but you can still farm those 4 horsemen because there's no exploits in this game, according to Ubisoft. Ubisoft does not think this game has any exploits. A lot of you will be happy, though, to take note that the map is now fixed. Leave a comment if yours isn't. I am sure Ubisoft is looking for feedback on that, since it's probably the first time seeing it with the fix. You know, you guys are they're QA testers after all. So if you're testing in production, or actually if you're a player, you are a tester in production. And if you have a problem with your map, make sure you call it out and you can get Ubisoft's attention and do that. All right, now on to more BS. They are aware that the time to kill is too long. This is all stuff they said in the state of the game. So I'm just quoting that and going off the state of the game stuff. So they are aware that the time to kill is too long. Yeah, no kidding. Did you guys figure this out before or after gameplay testing? What are your QA people doing? Also, what are we going to do in the meantime while you twiddle your thumbs about this issue? You nerfed the G36 and said that it wasn't the answer. And G36 helped with these missions to make it faster, but that wasn't the solution, as you said. It wasn't the solution, yeah. So nerfing it is. So nerfing the gun that was helping wasn't the solution, but you made it anyways. So you either need to raise the gun limit or lower the enemy armor. It is a fine line that you guys are pressing on these matters, and it's ridiculous. The long time to kill should be addressed, but it's not going to be addressed with weapon balance. Great. So we'll continue to slog through this endless process of long kill times with even less effective weapons for even less loot. Great. Seems like you guys thought this one out prior to deploying the patch. I kid you not, PS4 players. You may be salty that you did not get underground, but at least you'll get a well-rounded update on August 2nd, because we've had to go through this all month to perfect it for you guys. No need to thank Xbox and PC players for getting a solid patch out to you PS4 players. We do it because console love. You know, we love you guys. We love our PS4 players. I know there's a fanboy war, but you know what? There's no love lost here. I love PS4 players. I love Xbox players. But guess what? We're doing this for you. Xbox players, you are the alpha testers for the underground patch that's going to be deployed on PS4. Enjoy that role. No matter what anybody tells you, you can put that as, you know, QA tester for Ubisoft on your resume, I guess. All right, the next thing they talked about was ammo capacity not being high enough. So people are almost forced to use Lone Star. Okay, this is just dumb. Do they play their game? I have never run out of ammo, and if you have the right team and strats down, this doesn't matter. You run the ammo bag, you stay in the circle, it's part of the strat, but honestly, I would be happy to have more ammo. There are strategies, that's why they give you the ammo bag. My team, they know to run, one person runs the ammo bag, even with the directive on. Like, we don't run out of ammo, so it doesn't matter. If you're running out of ammo, then you need to get someone using the ammo bag. Stop being, get with the strategies and make it. Maybe I'll just make a video on what perks you need to use to run heroic missions in the underground. That's, just what I need to do to make sure that you guys have your team builds set up and all that stuff. They are working on a system to add more difficulty without just increasing the help pool, but that takes time. Seriously, stop adding to the difficulty. You have no idea how to do it, so you just throw more enemies and more armor and more health or nerf weapons. We are tired of this constant slog that you have produced, where you pit the elite yet ineffective and undergeared against waves of enemies who are obviously being funded and armed by military nations around the world. The LMB is obviously just handing out guns to anybody who wants it and their technology against the agents of the division who are funded by the government. How is this possible? It's like Oprah's in charge of the stockpile of weapons and they're just handing them out to anyone in a hoodie. This is ridiculous. Agents Division agents, government-funded agents, should be getting government funding for this stuff. Like, you put in like this agency, and then you don't give them weapons they can use. You give the enemies in the game, you give the enemies a story of, oh, this outbreak happened and they just happened to come together and become, these groups of rioters and Rikers and LMB, and these guys made homemade No, nobody's making homemade flamethrowers. I mean, the story in this is kind of far-fetched. I mean, this would never happen, honestly, in 100 years. No group of people, at least, hundreds of thousands of people in an organization are making homemade flamethrowers. Nobody's stupid enough to do that. That is it's extremely dangerous. There's a reason why they banned in the Geneva Convention flamethrowers. Not only was it burning people alive, which is, what the cleaners do. Yeah, I take it. But a lot of people were burning themselves alive. It was a seriously dangerous weapon to use for yourself. A lot of people burned themselves alive using flamethrowers. So that's just the way it is, but I don't see it. There's a lot of this story that is really far-fetched. I know that you're just putting this into the game as a story portion, but honestly, Joe Farrow isn't going to be dumb enough to go ahead and start making homemade flamethrowers and passing them out to untrained civilians in hazmat gear, and then without anybody getting burned alive. It's just not happening. I don't know. Loot. Well, what can we say? We are all disappointed, and hopefully you reversed your stealth nerf that you did last week to help bring back gear drops. It's abysmal right now. I love when they say in the state of the game that changes are in the works but take time to test. What are you testing? It's obviously that testing occurs in the production environment. When you deploy a patch, that's when the testing begins. I honestly, it really baffles me that there is so very little testing done before patches go out. People don't care about getting patches every week. They want the game fixed. They would rather you take the time to get in there, fix the stuff, test it, make sure it's fixed, and actually make sure that there's something that's working instead of adding to the game and making it worse. Now, let's move on and let's go to solo players, where they talked about solo players. Well, pretty much everything that Chai said, it was in the state of the game. Once again, something they are looking into for solo players. So fear not, your 214 gear sets will keep dropping as you go through solo in that zone, but you're not going to get through challenging or heroic just yet by yourself. So also no 229 blueprints. That was intentional. That was done on their part. We don't really need them. We don't really want them. It would be just a waste since there are better weapons in the 204 category. Like I said above, 204 weapons are just 229 weapons with a 1% increase to the perks. So it doesn't matter. Now, toughness in PvP. Oh, you're looking into this. Great. That is awesome. So happy you decided to look into this. While you're out, maybe you can check to see if the companion app is ready. Man, seriously, I am salty today, but this stuff pisses me off, and it should piss all of you off. They take one step in the right direction and then pull it back because the community is playing the game a different way than they intended you to play it. Toughness in PvP isn't the problem. PvP in PvP is the problem, and until that's fixed, the toughness won't matter. And moving on and talking about that, the Tanktician, that's going to get nerfed soon. They said, we are going to nerf the Tanktician. I'm just saying because they mentioned it in the state of the game, they have to nerf it. And it's getting changed after they, in quotation marks from me, test it. I'm making the quotation marks around test it because that's what they're going to do is quotationally test it. DZ funds. This is the problem with currency. You have too many currencies in the game. Change the DZ funds to regular funds and just have one main currency. This issue is where we have 5 different currencies and they are all used for different things. You can't take and balance one and you balance one and then you unbalance the others. No 229 weapons means no one is buying anything in the DZ because it's all invalidated by the 229 boost, and the 220 or 204 stuff is down there. Also, your green gear sets, they invalidate all of the 229 stuff, and not to mention your 229 just give a 1% boost to stats. There's no reason why you should get a boost to 1%. There's just no reason to do it for 1%. It's not worth the money. We just got a 204 jump in 1.2 and now 229 and no new blueprints? What's going on here? Why are you boosting a score and not planning for it? So I don't understand some of the logic sometimes in this game. It's like you guys think of something, but you don't really take the time to research whether it should be done. It sounds great on paper, but you're not really doing it for the community. You're doing it because somebody came up with an idea sitting around a table and somebody went, that sounds like a great idea, Bob. Why don't you go ahead and put that in the game? Not a, hey, let's go ahead and weigh the pros and cons of this idea and get it in there and see what it's like and then decide whether it should go in. So moving on to shotgunners. Oh, the shotgunners are too strong. Again, you said you fixed them before, which we all know is false. But you think they're punishing for all players, not just the solo ones. And they've been like that since day one. Honestly, you know what the fix is? Make them not stupid. No one in the army, police, or even a bad guy would dare run up by themselves on 4 people shooting at them, shooting bullets in their direction, and run up on them. Nobody's doing that. The better fix would be to work on the enemy AI and improving that, because right now, I think we can all agree that the enemies are pretty poorly programmed. I mean, the enemy behavior, like, you can program smart behavior. There is, an enemy should stay in cover while he's being suppressed, not while you're pointing at him with a gun. Like, I pointed at an enemy with a gun and he automatically knows I'm pointing at him, except for shotgunners. Shotgunners will just run up to you and start shooting. They don't care. They're just expendable people. These are supposed to be people who are, prison inmates and all of this stuff. They don't want to die for something stupid. Like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Make the enemy AI intuitive. Make it, make guys that run away. Like, they should run back into cover, fall back, strategic thinking, stuff like that. They should be helping their friends. I just don't understand it sometimes. It's really, enemies should be taking cover, not rushing us at the points. That's just the way it is. Like, using that as a difficulty tactic just isn't, really what it should be. And they won't talk about expanding the DZ. They said that they were going to talk about expanding the DZ. They're not talking about it. And personally, because the DZ is so toxic right now, they really need to focus on the part of the game that the people actually want to play, and that's the undergrounds. That is just what it is. So let's move on to scavenging, because they mentioned scavenging, and damn, this is getting old, and this one here is getting long, but it's all really important stuff, and it's the state of the game. But we're almost done. I promise you. I'm going to skip a few things, but they said scavenging, is not effective in endgame, and it needs work. Well, no shit. Really? You guys knew? Did you guys just start yesterday? Did you just join up? You know how scavenging works and doesn't. You know how it works in the game and how it doesn't work in the game. You want a suggestion on how to fix it? Because they said they're open to feedback. Make it apply to all aspects of the game, not just your unnamed drops, your unnamed enemies on the street garbage. We know how it works. Stop trying to fool us. We saw the file. Stop treating us like we're stupid, Massive. Ubisoft, whoever is in control of this, stop treating us like we're idiots. We've been giving you feedback, and are you listening to it? No. Make it work. It's broken. If it's not, tell us how it works so we can do it. You're giving us a placebo, and it's never worked. It's not worked since day one. We can all see it. Here's feedback. I'll do another whole video on it, because you obviously don't listen to some guys rant about this. But to fix scavenging, it needs to apply to everything in the game. Enemies, bosses, elites, named, unnamed, box loot, supply drops, mission rewards, everything. If I have 207 scavenging, which I do with the right gear on, I should always get better loot than a nomad drop, a lone star drop, a blind drop, a firecrest drop. Always 200% of the time. Screw this. I'll make one video per week from here on out about scavenging until it's fixed, or I see it's fixed, or I figure out it's fixed, or Massive comes out and says, okay, this is how it really works. This is why you aren't seeing any results. I should also do the same for the dark zone, just to get that changed. Honestly, I have to keep making videos about this just to appease myself, because we all know it doesn't work, yet they keep telling us it does. It's frustrating. And so the one good shining light is that all of you Sentry's Call fans, there are no nerfs incoming. Keep that DPS up, agents. You're hanging in there. You're doing your Sentry's Call, your 5-piece Sentry's Call with your Savage Gloves, your DPS monsters. Keep that in there. That is awesome. Now, there's no release date on 1.4, but let me give you a time frame since Massive won't. September to October for Xbox, October to November for PS4. It has to be, or they risk the last winter DLC going into late 2017 first quarter. quarter. It has to be there because the PS4 is on a time delay. And if you drop it in September and October, that leaves November and December for some time for the final DLC, which is not exclusive to Xbox. It's exclusive to everyone. So I can envision that 1.5 will probably be in December sometime. But because they said winter, it could be January or February 2017. I'm not 100% sure. It could be January, it could be February, but I'm guessing they're going to want to get it out before Christmas. So don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. I have friends inside Ubisoft. They have no idea when the release date is or when it's doing. I know they're working on it, but there's no release date for it. There are a few other minor things that I'm not going to go ahead and cover because this is already as long as I want it to be. So there are lots of more things. Go and watch the State of the Game video if you want to be as frustrated as I am. That has been my time, and thank you for hanging in and watching this whole thing. Hopefully you got some good insights into the G36 and some of the alternative weapons you can use if you want. Burst fire is a hard weapon to use. Finger cramping and getting sore are not fun. I have blisters from using the classic FAL for a little while because I tried it out just to see how it was. It is effective. The weapon damage is high, but you're not going to get that constant stream, but you're going to get a little bit better accuracy because it is burst fire, but that's just what it is. Now, drop a like on this if you found it informative or at least very entertaining. For all of us who work on these Division Let's Talk videos, I am Mountie Carl, and we'll see you soon in the underground. Agent out.